Jerry Foster jolts awake, his heart pounding against his ribs. The 35-year-old former Marine gasped for air, his skin slick with cold sweat. Another combat nightmare, he thinks, trying to steady his breathing. But this time, something is different. A shimmering portal materializes in his bedroom wall, pulsing with otherworldly energy. Jerry blinks hard, convinced he's still dreaming. A tall, blue-skinned figure emerges from the portal, its four arms moving with fluid grace. Jerry Foster. The alien speaks, its voice resonating with a strange harmony. I am Kira of the Reman species. We've been watching you for some time. Jerry scrambles to his feet, muscles tense for action. What the hell is going on? Kira raises her hands in a placating gesture. You're not miss, Yeti? They're not just dreams. They're real interdimensional battles against the Vorks, a parasitic race intent on consuming all sentient life. Jerry shakes his head, dismissing the alien's claims. You're not real. This is just another hallucination. Kira steps closer, her expression grave. Look at your arm, Jerry. The scar from your last dream battle. It's physical evidence of the war you've been fighting. Jerry glances down, his eyes widening at the sight of a fresh scar on his forearm. He traces it with his fingers, feeling the raised skin. Humans like you are uniquely suited for this combat, Kira continues. Your ability to lucid dream, combined with your tenacity in the face of overwhelming odds, makes you formidable warriors. And you, Jerry, are one of the most promising recruits we've encountered in decades. The stakes become clear as Kira explains further. The Vorks are on the verge of breaking through to Earth's dimension. If they succeed, humanity will be annihilated. Jerry's mind reels, struggling to process the information. His years of combat experience war with the sheer impossibility of the situation. Suddenly, alarms blare from an advanced device on Kira's wrist. Her expression turns urgent. A Vork scout has breached our reality nearby. We need to act now. Without waiting for Jerry's full commitment, Kira produces a small, intricate device. This is a psionic amplifier. You need to fall asleep immediately. In the dream state, you'll be able to perceive and combat the Vork's threat. Jerry hesitates, torn between disbelief and the undeniable evidence before him. Kira's eyes lock onto his, conveying the gravity of the situation. The fate of Earth hangs in the balance, Jerry. Will you fight? Time seems to slow as Jerry contemplates his decision. Continue his normal life and risk Earth's destruction, or join this secret war and become humanity's unseen protector. With a deep breath, Jerry nods. He lies down on his bed as Kira initiates a rapid sleep protocol. The room blurs around him, consciousness fading fast. In an instant, Jerry finds himself transported to a surreal battlefield. The laws of physics twist and bend, reality itself fluid and malleable. Grotesque, shape-shifting creatures advance towards a shimmering barrier, Earth's psychic defense. Jerry looks down at his hands, finding them holding weapons forged from pure thought. The muscle memory from countless combat nightmares kicks in. He realizes that his years of dream battles have been preparing him for this moment all along. As the Vorks close in, Jerry steels himself for his first conscious battle in this interdimensional war. He is humanity's dream warrior, Earth's last line of defense against a threat it doesn't even know exists. And he's ready to fight. As Jerry steeled himself for battle, the surreal landscape around him solidified into a twisted version of reality. The air shimmered with psychic energy, and the ground beneath his feet pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. He tightened his grip on the thought-forged weapons, their weight familiar, yet strange in his hands. The Vorks swarmed towards Earth's psychic barrier, their bodies a nightmarish blend of organic and inorganic matter. Jerry's combat instincts kicked in, his years of Marine training merging seamlessly with the countless nights of dream battles he'd unknowingly fought. He raised his plasma rifle, a perfect recreation from his memories, and fired. The bolt of energy tore through the first wave of Vorks, their bodies disintegrating into wisps of dark matter. Jerry moved with practiced efficiency, each shot finding its mark as he pushed back against the parasitic horde. As he fought, Jerry became aware of others fighting alongside him. To his left, a muscular man wielding a dream-crafted sniper rifle picked off Vorks with deadly precision. To his right, a lithe woman darted between enemies, her hands glowing with psionic energy. Marcus Williams, former Navy SEAL, the man called out between shots. Good to have some backup in this hellscape. The woman ducked under a Vork's tendril, her psionic blast reducing the creature to ash. Sarah Blackwood, ex-CIA, let's show these parasites what Earth's finest can do. Jerry nodded, a grim smile crossing his face. Jerry Foster, Marines. Looks like we've got ourselves a squad. The three fell into formation, their diverse skills complementing each other perfectly. Marcus provided long-range support, his dream sniper rifle taking out Vorks before they could reach the front lines. Sarah's psionic abilities created barriers and launched devastating area of effect attacks. Jerry, with his plasma rifle and close-quarters combat skills, held the line against the relentless Vorks assault. As the battle raged on, Jerry noticed a shift in the Vorks' tactics. The creatures began to adapt, changing their attack patterns and developing rudimentary shielding against their weapons. Jerry's mind raced, pushing his creativity to new limits as he modified his plasma rifle on the fly, adjusting its frequency to penetrate the evolving Vorks' defenses. "They're learning," Sarah shouted, her psionic barriers straining against a coordinated Vorks attack. "We need to change our strategy." Marcus swapped his sniper rifle for a multi-barrel weapon that fired streams of corrosive dream matter. "These buggers are smarter than they look. Any ideas, Jerry?" Jerry's eyes scanned the battlefield, searching for a weakness in the Vorks assault. Suddenly, he spotted a massive, pulsating entity emerging from the chaos. Its form shifted constantly, but Jerry could sense the malevolent intelligence directing the Vorks' forces. "There!" Jerry pointed towards the towering creature. "That's their hive mind. If we take it out, we might be able to disrupt their entire attack." Sarah nodded, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the situation. "It's heavily guarded. We'll need to punch through their defenses." "I've got an idea," Jerry said, feeling a new power stirring within him. He focused his thoughts, and suddenly the ground beneath the Vorks' forces began to shift and twist. Chasms opened up, swallowing entire swaths of the parasitic army. Marcus whistled in appreciation. "Now that's what I call crowd control. Let's move." The trio charged towards the hive mind, their path cleared by Jerry's reality-warping abilities. As they fought, Jerry felt the strain on his psyche increasing with each manipulation of the dreamscape. He gritted his teeth, pushing through the mental fatigue. They reached the base of the hive mind, its massive form looming over them. Waves of Vorks defenders swarmed to protect their leader, but the human squad was unstoppable. Marcus laid down suppressing fire with his dream weapon, while Sarah's psionic blasts created openings in the Vorks' ranks. Jerry channeled all of his combat experience, both from his time as a Marine and his subconscious dream battles, into a final, devastating assault. He conjured a weapon of pure thought, a representation of humanity's will to survive, and launched himself at the hive mind. The battle of wills was intense, Jerry's mind straining against the alien intellect. Images flashed through his consciousness, memories of battles fought, lives lost, and the ever-present threat of annihilation. But with each mental clash, Jerry felt himself growing stronger, more in tune with the dream world around him. With a final, Herculean effort, Jerry broke through the hive mind's defenses. The massive entity shuddered, its form beginning to destabilize. The coordinated Vorks assault faltered. The lesser creatures, losing their guiding intelligence. As the hive mind collapsed, Jerry felt a shift in the dreamscape. The Vork's forces began to retreat, their once unified attack dissolving into chaos. The human defenders pressed their advantage, driving back the parasitic invaders. Just as victory seemed within reach, Jerry heard Kira's voice cutting through the dream. "Jerry, you need to wake up now." He felt a sharp tug on his consciousness, the battlefield fading around him. Jerry tried to hold on, to see the battle through to its conclusion, but the pull was too strong. With a gasp, he found himself back in his bedroom, drenched in sweat and breathing heavily. Kira stood over him, her forearms moving in complex patterns as she monitored various devices. Her expression was a mix of relief and concern. "You did it, Jerry," she said, her harmonious voice tinged with urgency. "But this is only the beginning. The Vorks will be back, and we need to be ready." As Jerry struggled to process what had just happened, Kira's wrist device beeped insistently. She glanced at it, her eyes widening. "The Reman High Command has taken notice of your performance," she explained quickly. "They're requesting your immediate presence at our hidden base. We need to move now." Jerry's head spun with the implications. He had just fought an interdimensional battle, discovered powers he never knew he possessed, and now alien leaders wanted to meet him. As he looked at Kira, the weight of his decision pressed down on him. Would he fully commit to this secret war, or try to return to his normal life? Before he could voice his thoughts, Kira's device beeped again, more urgently this time. She looked at Jerry with intensity in her alien eyes. "We don't have much time," she said. "Are you ready to take the next step?" "Step?" Jerry asked, his heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and uncertainty. Kira nodded, her forearms working swiftly to activate a small device. "We must move quickly. The Reman High Command awaits." With a deep breath, Jerry stood up, still reeling from the intensity of his dream battle. He barely had time to grab his jacket before Kira activated the device, enveloping them in a shimmering field of energy. The world around them blurred and shifted, Jerry's stomach lurching as they were transported across dimensions. When the disorientation subsided, he found himself in a vast, dimly lit cavern deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. Jerry gasped, taking in the sight of the hidden Reman base. Holographic displays flickered throughout the space, showing real-time updates of Vork's activity across multiple dimensions. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, and the walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Kira said, guiding Jerry through the bustling command center. As they walked, Jerry's eyes were drawn to rows upon rows of stasis pods lining the cavern walls. Inside each pod, a human lay motionless, their minds engaged in unseen battles against the Vork's threat. "There are hundreds of them," Jerry murmured, a chill running down his spine as he realized the scale of this secret war. Before Kira could respond, a deep, resonant voice cut through the air. "Jerry Foster, we've been expecting you." Jerry turned to see a towering Reman figure approaching. Unlike Kira's live form, this alien was built like a tank, his blue skin crisscrossed with scars from countless battles. "I am Commander Zorn," the Reman said, his 6 eyes studying Jerry intently. "Your performance in the recent skirmish has not gone unnoticed." Jerry straightened his posture, years of military training kicking in. "Sir, I'm still trying to understand what's happening here." Zorn nodded, gesturing for Jerry to follow him to a central holographic display. "Then let me illuminate the full scope of our predicament." The commander manipulated a hologram, bringing up images of destroyed worlds and conquered civilizations. The Vorks are a plague upon the multiverse. They've consumed countless species, and now they've set their sights on Earth. Jerry watched in horror as simulations played out, showing potential scenarios of Vork's victory. Cities crumbled, the planet's biosphere collapsed, and humanity was reduced to nothing more than fuel for the parasitic invaders. But why Earth? Jerry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because humanity possesses a unique gift, a new voice answered. Jerry turned to see a woman in a lab coat approaching, her sharp eyes gleaming with intelligence. I'm Dr. Elena Petrova. I've been working with the Remans for years, studying human psionic potential. Dr. Petrova pulled up another holographic display, this one showing the evolution of the human brain. The Remans have been guiding human evolution for millennia, enhancing our natural psionic abilities. You, Jerry, represent the pinnacle of that potential. Jerry's mind reeled with the implications. So, all those nightmares, the combat training in my dreams, were real battles against the Vorax, Commander Zorn finished. But your ability to lucid dream, to maintain conscious control in that realm, makes you an invaluable asset. Dr. Petrova stepped forward, holding a sleek, metallic device. We've developed a new psionic amplifier. It could boost human dreamer abilities tenfold, but it's unstable and potentially dangerous to the user's mind. Jerry eyed the device, understanding dawning on him. You want me to test it? Commander Zorn nodded gravely. The choice is yours, but know that the fate of Earth may hang in the balance. Without hesitation, Jerry extended his hand. I'll do it. Dr. Petrova began attaching the amplifier to Jerry's temples, explaining the procedure as she worked. Jerry closed his eyes, bracing himself for whatever was to come. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the base. Commander Zorn rushed to a nearby console, his expression grim. Multiple Vorax incursions detected. They're targeting major Earth cities simultaneously. The amplification process isn't complete, Dr. Petrova warned, her fingers flying over the device's controls. Commander Zorn turned to Jerry, urgency in his voice. We need you in the field now. Every dreamer is vital to repelling this assault. Jerry nodded, pushing down his fear. I'm ready. They rushed him to an open stasis pod, the partial amplification already making Jerry's senses tingle with newfound power. As the pod sealed around him, Jerry heard Commander Zorn's final words. Defend New York City. The fate of humanity rests in your hands. Jerry's consciousness plunged into the dream world, his amplified abilities allowing him to perceive the battle on a scale he'd never imagined. He found himself hovering above the New York skyline, watching in horror as a colossal Vorax entity began to materialize over Central Park. The creature defied description, a writhing mass of tentacles and fractured reality that threatened to tear the very fabric of space-time. Jerry could feel the collective fear of millions of New Yorkers, their panic fueling the Vorax's strength. Drawing on his enhanced abilities, Jerry reached out with his mind, tapping into the city's collective consciousness. He felt the weight of history, the dreams and aspirations of countless individuals, and the indomitable spirit of New York itself. With a thought, Jerry began to reshape the dreamscape. The Empire State Building creaked and groaned, its Art Deco spire transforming into a massive energy cannon. The Statue of Liberty stepped off her pedestal, her torch blazing with psionic fire as she strode into the harbor to confront the emerging Vorax threat. All around the city, skyscrapers morph into towering mechs, their gleaming forms a fusion of human architecture and dream-forged weaponry. The very streets came alive, rippling like waves to swallow Vorax spawn that tried to gain a foothold in the city. As Jerry directed this dream-fueled defense, he became aware of other battles raging across the globe. His amplified connection allowed him to sense Marcus in London, transforming the Tower Bridge into a colossal bow to launch psychic arrows at the invaders. In Tokyo, Sarah wielded the Tokyo Tower like a katana, slicing through Vorax tendrils with precision. Jerry's mind expanded further, coordinating with dozens of other dreamers he'd never met. He shared tactics, combined their efforts, and for a moment, It seemed like humanity might have the upper hand. But the Vorks were quick to adapt. The massive entity over Central Park lashed out, its tentacles piercing the psionic barriers Jerry had erected. Where they touched, corruption spread, twisting the dream-forged defenses into nightmarish parodies of themselves. Jerry watched in horror as the Chrysler Building, now a gleaming mech, shuddered and convulsed. Its silver skin turned black, eyes glowing with malevolent red light as Vork's parasites took control. The corrupted defender began to rampage through Midtown, swatting aside Jerry's other constructs with ease. Realizing that conventional tactics were failing, Jerry made a desperate decision. He reached out with his amplified abilities, seeking the hive mind controlling the Vork's forces. As he made contact, the alien consciousness threatened to overwhelm him, a vast ocean of hunger and desperation that nearly drowned Jerry's sense of self. But Jerry's military training held firm. He pushed back against the tide of alien thoughts, carving out a space for himself within the hive mind. And there, in the swirling chaos of Vork's consciousness, Jerry discovered a shocking truth. The Vorks were not simply mindless parasites. They were a race fighting for survival, driven to conquest by the impending collapse of their home dimension. Jerry sensed their fear, their desperation, and the weight of countless lives hanging in the balance. This revelation hit Jerry like a physical blow. The black and white morality of the conflict blurred, presenting him with an impossible dilemma. Could there be a way to save humanity without destroying the Vorks entirely? As Jerry grappled with this newfound knowledge, he felt his connection to the dream world weakening. The strain of the amplification process and the mental battle with the Vork's hive mind was taking its toll. His constructs across New York began to flicker and fade, the Vorks pressing their advantage. With his last ounce of strength, Jerry pushed a thought into the Vork's collective consciousness. A seed of doubt, a suggestion that there might be an alternative to their destructive path. He felt a ripple of confusion spread through the hive mind just as his grasp on the dream world slipped away entirely. Jerry's eyes snapped open, the stasis pod hissing as it released him. His body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder, every nerve ending screaming in protest. Remand medics rushed to his side, working to stabilize him as the aftereffects of the amplification racked his system. Through the haze of pain and disorientation, Jerry locked eyes with Commander Zorn and Dr. Petrova. Their expressions were a mix of concern, hope, and urgent questioning. Jerry tried to speak, to convey the earth-shattering revelation he discovered within the Vork's hive mind, but his voice failed him. As darkness crept into the edges of his vision, Jerry realized that the fate of two species now rested on his shoulders. The next moves he made could determine the outcome of this interdimensional war, and he had precious little time to decide the best course of action. Commander Zorn leaned in close, his voice cutting through Jerry's fading consciousness. "What did you see, Jerry? What did you learn?" Jerry struggled to form words, knowing that his answer could change everything. The future of humanity, and perhaps the Vorks as well, hung in the balance as he fought to stay awake long enough to share his newfound knowledge. Knowledge, the future of humanity, and perhaps the Vorks as well, hung in the balance as he fought to stay awake long enough to share his newfound insight. "There! Not just invaders," Jerry croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Vorks. They're trying to survive." With those words, Jerry's consciousness slipped away, his body going limp in the stasis pod. Commander Zorn and Dr. Petrova exchanged worried glances as medical staff rushed to stabilize him. Hours passed in a blur of feverish dreams and fragmented memories. When Jerry finally regained full awareness, he found himself in the base's medical bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Dr. Petrova stood at his bedside, her face a mix of concern and curiosity. "Welcome back," she said softly. "You've been out for nearly 2 days. How do you feel?" Jerry attempted to sit up, wincing at the dull ache that permeated his entire body. "Like I've been hit by a truck," he groaned. "But But I'm alive. What happened? The battle. Dr. Petrova placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The Vork's attacks were repelled, but at a great cost. Many of our dreamers are in critical condition, and several major cities suffered significant damage. As Jerry absorbed this information, the door slid open and Commander Zorn strode in, his imposing figure filling the room. "Jerry," he rumbled, "we need to talk about what you discovered." Over the next hour, Jerry recounted his experience within the Vork's hive mind, describing their desperate situation and the impending collapse of their home dimension. As he spoke, he could see the impact of his words on both Zorn and Petrova. "This changes everything," Dr. Petrova breathed, her mind already racing with possibilities. Commander Zorn's expression hardened. "It changes nothing. The Vorks are still a threat to humanity's existence. We must continue to fight. But if we could find a way to communicate, to negotiate," Dr. Petrova began, "and risk everything on the slim chance of diplomacy," Zorn interrupted. "We cannot afford such a gamble." Jerry watched as the two argued, the ideological divide between them growing wider with each passing moment. He realized that his revelation had sparked a conflict that extended far beyond this room. Over the next few weeks, as Jerry underwent further training to control his amplified abilities, he found himself at the center of this ongoing debate. Both Zorn and Petrova sought his support, recognizing the weight his unique perspective carried. During his work with Dr. Petrova to refine the psionic amplifier, Jerry found himself drawn to her compassionate approach. They spent long hours together, discussing the ethical implications of the war and the potential for peaceful coexistence. "If we could just open a dialogue," Elena said one evening as they pored over test results, "we might find a solution that benefits both species." Jerry nodded, remembering the fear and desperation he'd sensed within the Vork's consciousness. "It won't be easy, but it's worth trying." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus and Sarah, fresh from the field. The two dreamers looked haggard but determined as they entered the lab. "Jerry, Dr. Petrova," Marcus greeted them. "We've got some interesting news from the dream realm." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "The Vorks there. Different. They're avoiding direct conflict, focusing instead on gathering information about our defenses and weaknesses." "It's like they're studying us," Marcus added. "This behavior change, it supports what Jerry told us about their true motivations." As they discussed these new developments, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Commander Zorn's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to battle stations. Vork scout ship detected entering Earth's atmosphere. This is not a drill." Jerry's heart raced as he followed Dr. Petrova to the command center. On the main screen, they watched a blinking that representing the Vork's ship descend towards the Himalayan mountains. "They're heading straight for us," Zorn growled. "Petrova, is that communication device of yours ready?" Elena shook her head. "Not yet, but—" "Then we stick to what we know." Zorn cut her off. He turned to Jerry. "Foster, you're leading the intercept team. Take Marcus and Sarah. Your mission is to stop that ship before it can pinpoint our location." Minutes later, Jerry found himself piloting an advanced reman aircraft, cloaked from detection. Marcus and Sarah flanked him as they soared through the crisp mountain air, closing in on the Vork's intruder. As they surrounded the alien vessel, forcing it to land in a remote valley, Jerry reached out with his amplified senses. He gasped as he made contact with the ship's occupants, feeling a familiar mix of fear, desperation, and curiosity. The Vork's ship touched down, its hull rippling and morphing into a form unlike anything Jerry had seen before. A being emerged, more solid and defined than the nightmarish entities they'd fought in the dream realm. "Hold your positions," Jerry ordered Marcus and Sarah, his heart pounding as he made a decision that could change the course of the war. Against Commander Zorn's explicit orders, but with the memory of Dr. Petrova's encouragement, Jerry approached the Vork's entity alone. In his hand, he clutched the prototype communication device, praying it would work as intended. As he drew near, the alien being seemed to focus on him. Tendrils of energy riding in what Jerry hoped was a non-threatening display. With a deep breath, he activated the device, feeling the familiar tingle of psychic energy wash over him. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, like a dam bursting, Jerry's mind was flooded with alien thoughts and emotions. The Vork's entity was communicating directly with him, confirming everything he'd glimpsed in the hive mind. We seek. Understanding, the entity's thoughts resonated in Jerry's mind. You're kind, unexpected, resilient, potential. Jerry struggled to maintain his composure, overwhelmed by the gravity of this moment. Here, in this remote Himalayan valley, he stood as a bridge between two species, the fate of both hanging in the balance. As the communication continued, Jerry became aware of movement behind him. Marcus and Sarah maintained their defensive positions, while in the distance, he could hear the approaching hum of engines, likely Commander Zorn's strike team, preparing for the worst. In the back of his mind, Jerry could almost hear Dr. Petrova's voice urging him forward, reminding him of the opportunity for peace. But the weight of responsibility pressed down on him, the lives of billions depending on what happened in the next few moments. The Vork's entity extended a limb towards Jerry, not quite touching him, but close enough that he could feel the strange energy emanating from it. A gesture of trust, or the prelude to an attack? Jerry's amplified senses worked overtime, trying to decipher the alien's intentions. He knew that his next words, his next actions, could determine the course of human history and the fate of an entire species. With a deep breath, Jerry prepared to take the next step in this unprecedented encounter, acutely aware that the eyes of both humanity and the Vorks were upon him. With a deep breath, Jerry extended his hand towards the Vork's entity, bridging the gap between their species. The moment their energies connected, Jerry's mind exploded with alien sensations. A torrent of information flooded his consciousness, far more intense than his previous encounter with the hive mind. He staggered, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data and emotion. "Jerry," Sarah called out, her voice tinged with concern. "Are you all right?" He held up a hand, signaling his teammates to stay back. Through the haze of alien thoughts, Jerry focused on a singular presence, a consciousness identifying itself as Zarkol. "We understand each other now," Jerry said, his voice strained. "They're called the Vorks, and their situation is even more desperate than we thought." As Jerry relayed the information to his team, the sound of approaching aircraft grew louder. Commander Zorn's strike team was closing in fast. Zarkol's thoughts resonated in Jerry's mind. Time, limited, must, show. Before Jerry could react, he felt a surge of energy. A small portion of Zarkol's consciousness merged with his own, and the world around him transformed. His perception expanded exponentially, allowing him to sense the molecular structure of the air, the magnetic fields of the earth, and the quantum fluctuations of reality itself. With a thought, Jerry lifted a boulder from the ground, suspending it effortlessly in the air. He felt the fabric of space-time bending to his will, manipulating matter without entering a dream state. "Incredible," Marcus breathed, watching in awe as Jerry demonstrated his newfound abilities. The merging ended as abruptly as it began, leaving Jerry gasping for air. The sudden absence of Zarkol's consciousness left him feeling hollow, yet his mind raced with vivid memories of alien worlds and advanced scientific concepts he could barely comprehend. Commander Zorn's voice crackled over the comm. "Foster, report. What's happening down there?" Jerry struggled to find the words to explain the monumental shift in the conflict. "Sir, we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the Vorks. They're proposing a solution, a symbiosis between our species. Absolutely not, Zorn growled. This is clearly a trap. Prepare to engage the... Wait, Dr. Petrova's voice cut in. Jerry, what exactly are they proposing? As Jerry explained the concept of the symbiotic merger, he could sense the growing tension between Zorn and Petrova. The commander's distrust clashed with the scientist's curiosity, mirroring the divide that was about to split both human and Vork's forces. Zarkol's form shimmered, projecting images of their dying home dimension. The urgency of their plight became painfully clear. They had mere months before total annihilation. We must act quickly, Jerry said, feeling the weight of two species' futures on his shoulders. But we need to be careful. The symbiosis process isn't perfect. There's a risk of... His warning was cut short by a deafening explosion. The sky lit up with energy weapons fire as a new wave of Vork's ships descended upon them. Hostile forces inbound, Sarah shouted, taking up a defensive position. Through his amplified senses, Jerry could feel the discord among the attacking Vorks. These were not Zarkol's allies, but a separate faction led by a being called Nix-Ra, intent on continuing the original plan of conquest. The peaceful exchange had become a battlefield. Jerry's team scrambled for cover as Zorn's strike force engaged the hostile Vork ships. Caught in the middle, Zarkol's vessel began to power up, preparing to defend itself. We need to get out of here, Marcus yelled over the chaos. Jerry knew they couldn't leave Zarkol behind. The knowledge they shared could be the key to ending the war and saving both species. He made a split-second decision. Zarkol, come with us. Jerry projected the thought as clearly as he could. We'll protect you. As Zarkol's ship merged with their own craft, Jerry felt a surge of hope. They had a chance to change the course of the war, but first, they needed to survive this battle and convince both sides that cooperation was their only path forward. The combined human-Vork's vessel took off, weaving through the battlefield. Jerry used his enhanced abilities to create a psionic shield around them, deflecting enemy fire. As they raced back to the Remand base, he knew that the real challenge was just beginning. News of the encounter spread like wildfire. Within hours, the existence of the Vorks and the Dream Warriors was leaked to the public. Global panic ensued as governments scrambled to respond to the revelation of an alien threat. Back at the base, Jerry found himself at the center of a storm of debate. Commander Zorn argued vehemently against any cooperation with the Vorks, while Dr. Petrova pushed for further research into the symbiosis process. We can't trust them, Zorn insisted during a tense briefing. This symbiosis could be a ploy to take over our minds and bodies. But think of the potential, Petrova countered. The scientific advancements, the power to defend ourselves. At what cost? Zorn shot back. Our humanity? As the argument raged on, Jerry's mind drifted to the experience of merging with Zarkol. The power had been intoxicating, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had come close to losing himself in the process. Alarms blared, cutting the debate short. Nix-Ra's forces had launched attacks on major cities across the globe, abandoning all pretense of secrecy. We're out of time, Jerry said, silencing the room. We need to make a decision now. Dr. Petrova stepped forward, her eyes bright with dedication. I've been working on stabilizing the symbiosis process. With Zarkol's help, I think we can create a safe, temporary merger. What are you proposing? Zorn asked, his tone wary but curious. An elite team, Petrova explained. Human Vorks hybrids with the power to fight Nix-Ra's forces and potentially save the Vorks' home dimension. All eyes turned to Jerry. As the only human to have experienced symbiosis, he was the natural choice to lead this new hybrid force. It's not without risk, Petrova warned. A more permanent merger could fundamentally change who you are. Jerry felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The fate of two species hung in the balance. Before he could respond, the base shook violently. Nixra's forces had found them. "We're under attack," an officer shouted. "Multiple breaches in the outer defenses." Chaos erupted as personnel rushed to battle stations. In the confusion, a stray energy blast struck Dr. Petrova's lab, damaging the prototype symbiosis stabilizer. "No!" Petrova cried, rushing to salvage her work. Jerry knew they had to act fast. He turned to his team, seeing the perseverance in their eyes. "Marcus, Sarah with me," he ordered. "We need to protect Dr. Petrova and her research. It's our only shot at ending this war." As they raced through the crumbling base, Jerry's mind raced with possibilities. The power of symbiosis could turn the tide of the battle, but at what personal cost? And even if they survived this attack, how could they convince a panicked world that cooperation with the Vorks was their best hope for survival? The base shuddered again, walls cracking under the Vorks' assault. Jerry activated his psionic abilities, creating a shield around his team as they fought their way towards Petrova's lab. Time was running out, and the future of both species would be decided in the next few moments. Jerry gritted his teeth, his mind racing to formulate a plan amidst the chaos. "We need to get to Dr. Petrova's lab," he shouted over the din of alarms and explosions. "Her research is our only hope." Marcus and Sarah nodded, falling into formation behind Jerry as they sprinted through the crumbling corridors. Jerry's psionic abilities pulsed, creating a shimmering shield around them that deflected falling debris and stray energy blasts. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a group of panicked scientists fleeing from the lab area. Jerry grabbed one by the arm, recognizing Dr. Petrova's assistant. "Where's Dr. Petrova?" he demanded. "Still in the lab," the assistant gasped. "She refused to leave her work behind." Jerry cursed under his breath. "Marcus, Sarah, clear a path. I'll get the doctor." They fought their way through the chaos, Jerry's enhanced senses allowing him to anticipate and counter threats before they materialized. As they neared the lab, a massive explosion rocked the facility, causing the ceiling to cave in just meters ahead of them. "No!" Jerry yelled, his heart pounding as he feared the worst for Dr. Petrova. Using his psionic abilities, he began lifting and tossing aside chunks of debris. Sarah and Marcus joined in, their faces grim with commitment as they worked to clear a path. Finally, they broke through to find Dr. Petrova hunched over a damaged console, frantically trying to salvage data from the prototype symbiosis stabilizer. "Doctor, we need to go now," Jerry urged, pulling her away from the sparking equipment. "But my research," she protested, clutching a data drive to her chest. "We'll take what we can," Jerry assured her, helping her gather essential components. As they made their way back through the rubble-strewn corridor, Commander Zorn's voice crackled over the comms. "Foster, if you can hear me, get to Hangar B. We have a way out." Jerry acknowledged the transmission and led his team through the maze of collapsing passageways. They arrived at a hidden hangar to find Zorn standing beside a sleek, otherworldly aircraft. "Man-human hybrid craft," Zorn explained quickly. "Designed for interdimensional travel. It's our best shot at escaping." Without hesitation, they began loading Dr. Petrova's salvaged equipment and research data onto the ship. Jerry's enhanced senses picked up the sound of approaching Vork's forces. "We're out of time," he warned. "Everyone on board now." As they scrambled into the craft, a wall of the hangar exploded inward, revealing a swarm of Nixra's forces. Jerry felt a familiar presence brush against his mind, a fragment of Zarkol's consciousness left from their earlier connection. In that moment, Jerry made a split-second decision. He reached out to that fragment, initiating a partial symbiosis. The rush of alien consciousness flooded his mind, amplifying his psionic abilities beyond anything he'd experienced before. With a thought, Jerry erected a massive psychic barrier between their ship and the attacking Vorks. The strain was immense, but it bought them the precious seconds needed for Zorn to power up the hybrid craft. As they lifted off, Jerry felt his control slipping. The partial symbiosis was unstable, threatening to overwhelm his sense of self. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus on the immediate task of their escape. The hybrid aircraft shot out of the collapsing hangar, weaving through a maelstrom of energy blasts from pursuing Vorik ships. Jerry found himself instinctively interfacing with the craft systems, pushing its performance beyond design limits. "Where are we going?" Sarah called out, her voice tight with tension. "Australian Outback," Zorn replied, his hands dancing over the controls. "We have a secondary outpost there." As they fled the devastation of the Himalayan base, urgent communications flooded their comms. Major cities worldwide were under simultaneous attack by Nix-Ra's forces. The existence of the alien invaders was now impossible to hide from the public. During their frantic flight, Dr. Petrova worked tirelessly to reconstruct her research using the salvage data. She observed Jerry's condition with growing excitement. "You're a partial symbiosis," she mused. "It could be the key to refining the process. We might be able to eliminate the risk of personality overwrite." Hours later, they touched down at the hidden Australian outpost. As they disembarked, Jerry struggled to maintain his grip on reality, the alien presence in his mind threatening to subsume his consciousness. They were met by a group of grim-faced military officials from various nations. Among them stood a familiar figure, General Hank Briggs, Jerry's former commanding officer from his Marine days. "Foster," Briggs greeted him, his expression a mix of concern and hope. "We're on the brink here. World governments are pushing for a coordinated nuclear strike against the Vork's incursion points." Jerry's mind raced, processing the implications of such a desperate move. He knew they needed a better solution, and fast. "General," he said, his voice strained from the effort of maintaining control, "I have a proposal, but we'll need to act quickly." As Jerry began to outline his daring plan for a human Vork's hybrid force, he could feel the fragile balance of the partial symbiosis wavering. Time was running out not just for him, but for all of humanity. The next 48 hours would determine the fate of two species, and Jerry found himself at the center of it all, walking a razor's edge between human and alien, between salvation and annihilation. Annihilation, the weight of two worlds pressed down on his shoulders as he faced General Briggs and the assembled officials. "General, we need to act fast," Jerry said, his voice strained from the effort of maintaining control over the partial symbiosis. "I propose we create a human Vork's hybrid force to combat Nix-Ra's invasion." Before Briggs could respond, the outpost alarms blared to life. A technician's voice crackled over the intercom. "Multiple Vork ships detected. They found us." Chaos erupted as personnel scrambled to battle stations. Jerry's enhanced senses picked up the distant rumble of approaching enemy craft. "We're out of time," Dr. Petrova said urgently. "Jerry, if we're going to attempt a full symbiosis, it has to be now." Jerry nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. "Do it." As explosions rocked the outpost, Jerry was quickly ushered into a modified stasis pod. Dr. Petrova and her team worked feverishly to prepare the equipment, their movements precise despite the growing pandemonium around them. "This is going to hurt," Dr. Petrova warned as she initiated the procedure. Pain unlike anything Jerry had ever experienced seared through his body and mind. It felt as if every cell was being torn apart and reassembled. Through the haze of agony, he sensed another consciousness pushing against his own. Castor, a Vork's warrior aligned with Zarkol's peaceful faction. As their minds merged, Jerry was flooded with alien memories and knowledge. Centuries of combat experience unfurled in his mind like a vast, cosmic tapestry. He saw distant worlds, felt the ache of a dying dimension, and understood the intricate workings of Vork's technology. Outside the pod, Marcus and Sarah sprang into action. They exchanged a quick glance before racing towards the outpost defenses. "Time to see what we can really do," Marcus said, sliding into the seat of a defensive turret. Sarah nodded, her eyes glowing with psionic energy. "Let's give them hell." Marcus's enhanced reflexes allowed him to track and fire upon incoming Vork's fighters with uncanny accuracy. Each shot found its mark, sending enemy craft spiraling to the ground in balls of flame. Meanwhile, Sarah focused her mental energy, creating shimmering force fields around critical areas of the base. Vork's energy blasts dissipated harmlessly against her psionic barriers. In the secure bunker, General Briggs received an urgent transmission. "Sir, we're getting reports from Washington. Several nations are prepping nuclear strikes against Vork's strongholds." Briggs's face paled. "Damn it, that's millions of civilian lives. We need more time." He turned to his communications officer. "Get me a direct line to the Joint Chiefs. Tell them we have a game-changing operation in progress." Back in the lab, Jerry's vital signs spiked dangerously. Dr. Petrova worked frantically to stabilize the symbiosis process, her fingers flying over holographic displays. "Come on, Jerry," she muttered. "Fight through it." Inside Jerry's mind, a battle raged. Castor's alien consciousness threatened to overwhelm him, to subsume his identity entirely. For a moment, Jerry felt himself slipping away, losing his grip on who he was. Then, unbidden, memories flooded his mind. The smell of his mother's cooking, the feel of ocean spray on his face during a childhood beach trip, the proud smile of his father when he graduated from basic training. These uniquely human experiences anchored him, allowing Jerry to reassert control and achieve a balanced merger with Castor. The pod hissed open, and Jerry emerged transformed. His body crackled with energy, every movement fluid and purposeful. Without a word, he strode towards the heart of the battle. Outside, the situation had become dire. Vork's forces had breached the outer defenses, and the human defenders were being pushed back. Jerry stepped into the fray, his hands glowing with concentrated energy. With a thought, Jerry manipulated the fundamental forces around him. Vork's attackers were hurled backwards by invisible waves of force. Energy beams leapt from his fingertips, cutting through alien armor like paper. Marcus, still manning the turret, gaped at the display. "Holy shit," he breathed. Jerry's mind interfaced directly with the outpost systems, coordinating the defense within human efficiency. He sensed a Vork ship attempting to flank their position, and reached out with his newfound abilities. To the amazement of the human defenders, the enemy ship suddenly veered off course, its systems hijacked by Jerry's mental command. He turned the vessel against its former allies, using its weapons to devastate the Vork's assault force. The tide of battle turned swiftly. Faced with Jerry's overwhelming power and the unexpected loss of their ship, the Vork's invaders began to retreat. As the last enemy fighters disappeared over the horizon, Jerry landed the captured Vork ship in the outpost's main hangar. He emerged to find General Briggs waiting for him, accompanied by a group of Special Forces operators. "Impressive work, Foster," Briggs said, his eyes scanning Jerry's altered form. "I've managed to buy us some time, but the nuclear option is still on the table. We need to move fast." Jerry nodded, his mind already racing with plans. "We need to form a hybrid strike team immediately. These men," he gestured to the Special Forces group, "they're willing to undergo the symbiosis?" "Yes." One of the operators stepped forward, a familiar face from Jerry's Marine days. "We're ready to take the fight to the enemy, sir." "Good," Jerry said. "Dr. Petrova, how quickly can we perform the procedures?" The scientist, who had just arrived from the lab, looked thoughtful. "With the data from your successful merger, we can streamline the process significantly. Give me an hour to set up, and we can begin. As the team dispersed to prepare, Jerry felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of urgency. Through his connection with Castor's consciousness, he saw a vision of the Vork's home dimension. The fabric of reality itself seemed to be unraveling, the destruction spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Jerry knew that their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. They needed to act fast, not just to save Earth, but to prevent the collapse of an entire dimension and the extinction of the Vork species. With new hope, Jerry began to formulate a plan. They would use the captured Vork ship to launch a surprise attack on Nix-Ra's main force. But first, they needed to create the most formidable fighting force Earth had ever seen. As the symbiosis procedures began for the first group of volunteers, Jerry stood watch, his enhanced senses alert for any sign of Vork's retaliation. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. The weight of two worlds pressed down on his shoulders as he faced the daunting task ahead. As the symbiosis procedures for the first group of volunteers neared completion, Jerry's enhanced senses detected a shift in the air. He turned to Dr. Petrova, who was monitoring the vital signs of the participants. "How much longer?" he asked, his voice tight with urgency. Dr. Petrova glanced at her holographic display. 5 minutes for this batch. We'll need at least 3 more groups to have a viable strike force. Jerry nodded, his mind racing. We don't have much time. I can sense the Vork's dimension destabilizing at an alarming rate. As if on cue, the ground beneath them trembled. Alarms blared throughout the facility, and technicians scrambled to their stations. "Sir," a young officer burst into the room. "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations worldwide. Something's happening in the skies above major cities." Jerry closed his eyes, reaching out with his newfound abilities. Through his connection with Castor's consciousness, he saw it, a terrifying vision of reality unraveling. "It's starting," he muttered. "The collapse of the Vork's dimension is affecting our world." He turned to General Briggs, who had just entered the room. "General, we need to move now. Gather everyone who's completed the symbiosis. We're launching our counterattack." Within minutes, Jerry stood before a group of 20 human Vork's hybrids, each emanating an aura of power that crackled in the air. Among them were Marcus and Sarah, their familiar faces now bearing subtle alien features. "Listen up," Jerry addressed the group. "Our mission is twofold. We need to stop Nix-Ra's forces and stabilize the collapsing dimension. The fate of both our worlds depends on our success." As Jerry outlined the plan, the hybrid team boarded the captured Vork ship. The vessel hummed to life, responding to their collective mental commands. "Dr. Petrova," Jerry called out as they prepared for takeoff. "Continue the symbiosis procedures. We'll need every hybrid we can get." The scientist nodded, perseverance etched on her face. "Good luck, Jerry. We'll be monitoring your progress from here." With a thought, Jerry activated the ship's cloaking technology. They rose silently into the air, leaving the Australian outpost behind. As they soared across the globe, the true scale of the crisis became apparent. Massive interdimensional rifts had opened in the skies above New York, London, Beijing, and other major cities. Swirling vortexes of energy pulsed ominously, distorting the very fabric of reality around them. "My God," Marcus whispered, staring at the holographic display showing the worldwide chaos. Jerry interfaced directly with the ship's systems, pushing its engines to their limits. "We need to reach Nix-Ra's stronghold. It's the source of this invasion, and our best chance to stop the dimensional collapse." As they approached their target, a massive Vork's command ship hovering over the ruins of what was once Geneva, Jerry sensed a familiar presence. Nix-Ra's psychic defenses loomed before them, a nearly impenetrable wall of mental energy. "Everyone, focus your minds," Jerry commanded. "We're going to break through together." The hybrid team joined their consciousnesses, forming a unified psychic battering ram. With Jerry at the helm, they launched a massive mental assault on Nix-Ra's defenses. For a moment, it seemed as if they would be repelled. The pressure was immense, threatening to overwhelm their combined minds. But then, with a sound like shattering glass, they broke through. Alarms blared across Nix-Ra's command ship as their presence was detected. Swarms of Vorax fighters poured out to meet them. "Marcus, Sarah, take control of our weapon systems," Jerry ordered. "The rest of you, prepare for psychic warfare. We're going in." Their stolen ship weaved through a storm of energy blasts, retaliating with precision strikes. Marcus's enhanced reflexes allowed him to target multiple enemies simultaneously, while Sarah erected psionic shields to deflect incoming fire. As they fought their way closer to the command ship, Jerry felt a familiar presence brush against his mind. Nix-Ra had sensed their approach and was preparing for battle. Suddenly, a massive energy surge rocked their ship. The interdimensional rifts worldwide pulsed in unison, sending shockwaves across both realities. The dimensional collapse is accelerating, Jerry realized with growing dread. We're running out of time. With renewed urgency, he pushed their attack forward. The hybrid team unleashed a barrage of psychic and physical assaults on Nix-Ra's forces, slowly but surely fighting their way towards the heart of the command ship. As they breached the outer defenses, Jerry received an incoming transmission from Dr. Petrova. "Jerry, we've made a breakthrough." Her voice crackled through the comm system. "The combined psionic energy of merged human Vorax consciousnesses. It can stabilize the collapsing dimension. But we need an enormous amount of power and perfect synchronization." Jerry's mind raced, processing this new information. He looked at his team, then at the swirling rifts visible through the ship's viewports. A plan began to form. "Dr. Petrova, can you broadcast a message to every dreamer on Earth?" he asked. "Yes, but why?" "We're going to need their help," Jerry replied, his voice filled with commitment. "Tell them to focus their thoughts on the rifts. We'll use their mental energy to amplify our own." As Dr. Petrova set to work, Jerry turned to his team. "Change of plans. We're not just here to fight. We're here to save two worlds." With that, they plunged deeper into the heart of Nix-Ra's stronghold, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their desperate bid to save both humanity and the Vorax from annihilation.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.